Just hit record. Nope. Yep, now we're on. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is Wednesday, May 31st. It is 6:30 p.m. And gosh, look at everybody in the audience. Thanks for all coming out.
Because they're all watching on TV.
I know, they're all on TV land, so yeah. Lisa, roll call, please. Present.
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 Thank you. And with that, I would like to ask Frankie and Michael if you guys would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Great job, guys. All right, we're adoption of the agenda. I would like to remove item 6K from the consent and put it as the first action item. So I make a motion for that. Are there any other amendments?
That was 6K.
6K.
Okay. If there's no other, I would like to.
I've made the motion, so I need a
Motion, so I'll
second.
second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Call the public. I don't have any cards. Anybody want to speak? Nope. Skipping that. Superintendent's report. Dr. Chestnut.
Board, a few things to report on tonight. I want to congratulate our Maricopa High School softball and baseball athletes for postseason recognition, and we'd hoped we might get one or two of them here tonight, but, I don't think we did. But we're still very proud of them, and just to name names, we're in 5A Metro now, 5A Metro League, which is a tough league, and we had 8 baseball and softball players that were named to the all-region teams. So in baseball, we had Carter Payne and Jackson Stensgaard named to first team. Taylor Belcher and Devin Fiala were second team, and Tyler Belcher and Malachi Hogue were honorable mention in baseball. So that's pretty cool. And in softball, we had Juliet Hawthorne was first team, and Chantel Holquin was second team. So we're proud of them. And Lisa made certificates for all of them, so we'll get those out to them. But always like to recognize kids that really excel, and that's a nice thing to recognize. I want to report that finished walkthroughs for the year. Finished with 195 walkthroughs, made it to each school. Some schools 4 times with walkthroughs, some 3. I was in more classrooms than that, but that was 195 times where I was in there long enough to be able to comment on what was going on in there and send an email back to the teacher in most cases. And very pleased with what's happening in our classrooms. And we still have a lot of work to do, a lot of improvement that we need to make. And I think we're making those improvements. I think our new math curriculum will be another big step in that direction. And, we're doing the right things, and we're just going to keep doing it. So we have 9 really excellent principals, and I think they're doing good work. So it's a pleasure to work with them. And, of course, right now the big task is year-end evaluation, so I'm kind of in the middle of that with the principals, and I enjoy doing that. It's a good way to sit down and kind of debrief the year and celebrate accomplishments and plan for the future. So that's a good part of the year for me that I enjoy. I'm not sure if you heard about this, but on the 13th, I was the director of the mass band for the grand finale of middle school and high school bands for the Music-a-thon. And this is not the actual picture. I have an actual video, but I thought, I'm not going to show that. But just gives you an idea of the size of that group. And this was a picture was taken a couple of years ago. The group was like 3 times that size. And I knew it was going to work because both middle school band teachers were playing with the students. And so the students were awesome. And I got to direct the school fight song. So that was fun. I had never done that before, and it was a fun thing to do. I did attend the Maricopa Economic Development Alliance board meeting. I enjoyed being on that board. One thing that they're working on right now that is pretty cool is, they've done those promotional videos for the city of Maricopa, and they have done 2 really nice ones promoting Maricopa schools in the last couple of years. This latest one that hasn't been broadcast yet is really just talking about families and why families move here and the advantages of that. And the family they chose to interview was Steve Sorensen, our AP teacher at Butterfield, and his wife Dr. Sorensen. And they just talked about why they live in Maricopa, why they enjoy it. And so I haven't seen the video yet, but I'll send you the broadcast time, and I thought that was a cool thing. And I know they took some video of Steve teaching his PE classes and stuff like that, so should be a cool video. We had a wonderful Best of the Best recognition event on May 17th. Michelle Garcia and Lisa Hahn did a lot of good work to get that thing organized, and these were our 3 teachers of the year. Joe Soltisic, and he's in the blended learning program at Maricopa Wells. Jen Bell teaches special ed at Santa Cruz. And Deshaun Gregory is Master Sergeant Deshaun Gregory, works in the junior ROTC program at the high school. So we had a lot of nominees, and the thing that I think is coolest about it is that if you nominate somebody, you write up some really nice things about them, and then everybody that you nominate gets a copy of that. So they know, they get those nice things that they can just take with them, and some people are nominated by 2 or 3 or 4 people. So anyway, it's a good event, and enjoy doing that each year. We had a great unification celebration on May 23rd, and the one year we had our very best bad weather plan. The weather was perfect, so we didn't need the bad weather plan. That was a fun event. And on the 24th, we started, I think this is a new tradition. I think it is the first one. Graduates visited I think they focused on their own elementary schools, right? Only one school got left out, and I never found out why, one elementary. So we'll try and make it to all 6 next year. But very cool. The graduates would parade through the halls with their cap and gown, and pretty attentive audience, as you can see there, sitting in the hallways. And I thought that was a really cool tradition to get started. We had a wonderful graduation ceremony. I think I sent you that email from a parent who was just so impressed and said it better than I could, but it was just a wonderful evening. I thought it was very well done. Of course, it helped that the weather was absolutely perfect, but a lot of planning goes into that. The grounds crew, maintenance department, for example, spends weeks and weeks getting ready for that. The grounds look perfect. It was just a wonderful event all the way around, and good recognition for our students. And I'd like to say that's the best party in Maricopa all year. It really is. It's the biggest, the best. I think it's the biggest celebration. We have good, salsa festival and all that, but this is my favorite one, and there's a huge crowd and 10 zillion balloons, and it was a wonderful evening. And other big news. So our certified openings, we're all tracking that very closely. I want you to notice the number of red nuns up there. All 6 elementaries are none, meaning they have no openings to fill at this time. The 3 secondary schools plus Ram Academy have some. We're working on it. And another big news story is at the top. We're now at 49 out of our 50 override positions filled. So we're determined to get that last one, and we're pretty excited about that. And I'm looking down there. Ram Academy also just filled their final elected position. I found that out today, so that is listed as none also. But you can see the openings. We have a total of 16 certified openings. 13 of them are classroom positions. We have some backup plans. We have some people in the pipeline. We still have interviews going on. We're going to make this work. We have 7 permanent substitutes that can be used in a pinch to get us started. That kind of extends our recruiting year. And, it's not unusual to get a teacher in here late. Even though it's not an ideal situation, sometimes you do have to resort to that. The teacher shows up, last week of August or something like that. So principals are working hard on this. It's still a big, huge priority. And, we are in better shape than we have been since I've been here in the 5 years that I've been here. So thanks to Mr. Beckett and the principals, HR department. Everybody works really hard on this. And I think we're really in pretty good shape. And as you know, these numbers change a little bit. Some people still continue to move around and that kind of thing. But I think we are thinking we're going to have a record low percentage of turnover. So we're not ready to announce that yet, but if it kind of stays the way it's going, we're going to have lowest turnover in years. So that's something that is really worth getting excited about. So anyway, this is a big deal, and will be the focus in the next month in particular. That's all I have.
Reports, and before I turn this over, I know that thank you to everyone for attending as many of our celebrations that we could attend. It was really nice I tried to make at least one for every school. I don't think I made it to every school, but the varying levels was really kind of cool, from kindergarten to 5th grade to 6th grade to 8th grade to high school was really great. And a big thanks to everyone involved with graduation, not only the high school staff, the district staff, getting the word out about our traffic situation, the media, thank you so much. It really did help make it a very smooth night. And so it was really a nice celebration all the way around. So with that, I'm going to let Mr. Judd go.
Thank you, President Coutre. I was just blown away by graduation ceremony, being my first time up there. It's just an amazing sight to be able to see that from the stage. It's just a different perspective. And as everyone's already commented, the grounds were beautiful, the weather was perfect, it was just a perfect night. Being able to be a part of those end of the year celebrations was great. You know, being able to go to, obviously for my own children, for Pima Butte, for 5th and 6th, and then for the middle school unification ceremony, which was wonderful. I think all the board members were in attendance for that. It was a treat to be a part of those events. Also looking forward to attending the leadership conference starting next week, and that's all I have to report. Yeah.
Yes, well, I would just like to say it was a great graduation from class of 2029 to class of 2017, and you know, it was great to participate in a lot of the schools and be present and see our rich culture within our schools, within our community, with everybody coming together and making the graduation for all levels come together and be successful. And so that was great. And also, last night we had a budget meeting, so I think we're kind of zooming that in. So it's definitely good that we're here still grinding it out, and you know, everybody on vacation, and you know, hope everybody has a good, safe summer, and we will continue with the budget and grinding it out here as we do. So that's all I'd have to say.
Okay, so ditto to all of the graduation stuff. That was good. I did talk to Chief Stahl and had a couple of tweaks, suggestions for next year's traffic control, but did thank him for contacting ADOT and getting all that worked out. And he did remind me that there was no charge for their traffic control. So I just I want to thank the city, thank you. But he was very appreciative, and he was happy with the way it turned out. So I think if we can continue to have that partnership with the city, I think that will be extremely helpful for next year as we're going to get bigger. So that was a big plus. I also want to, tomorrow I am attending an education summit with the Soroptimist Club, and it's education and our girls. So I'm excited to hear what this group, it's a nonprofit international group, and so they're doing an education summit tomorrow. So I'm curious just to see what they have to say, and even from an international point, what other places are doing. So I'm excited to attend that tomorrow. And then Friday, I will be chairing the Arizona School Board Association Legislative Committee, so that will be all day. I did invite Board Member Judd if he'd like to come and sit in on it. You're more than welcome. So, because I think that you might be a great candidate for next year to sit on this committee, as well as Dr. Miller, because I think we need to represent our district, and this is a great way to do it. So, so that is Friday all day from 9 to 4. And then, of course, next week is the summer leadership for Arizona School Board, so we'll also be at that. So that'll be I'm looking forward to see what they've got to say as that as well. So that's it. It's a crazy week.
Definitely. All right. Moving on to our work studies, the 2017-18 class size targets. Dr. Chestnut.
Night at our study session, and it's on the budget list, and have my slides here, and this was the option that the board seemed to be most interested in. We called it option C. It was the most aggressive as far as lowering the class size targets. So just to remind everybody how this chart works, on the left-hand side, those numbers from kindergarten down through 9th through 12th grade, that's how we staffed each school, each grade level. And if every kid shows up in August that was here in May, then those will be the class sizes. And we have the teachers distributed where we think the students will be and where they were this past school year. But we also know that students never show up for some reason exactly where they ended the year. Some families move, and one neighborhood builds several more houses than the other, and you know how that goes. So there is always some fluctuation. And then on the right-hand side are the targets where if the number of students in that classroom, in a particular classroom, goes above that number for more 10 consecutive days, then we do something. And that, at K-5, that means that we will pay teacher an overload payment of $5 per student per day. That'd be a maximum of 170 days if you were over that target number for each student. Grades 6 through 12, well, let me go back to elementary. Or, depending, let's say it was a big influx and there are like 6 or 8 over in each classroom, then we would consider either hiring a parapro, that could be a full-time for that classroom or could be split depending on how the numbers go, or we'd even consider adding another teacher at that grade level. So those are the 3 options at the elementary level. Secondary, our go-to strategy is that we hire an overload. We ask somebody to teach on their prep period, we pay them for that, and that allows us to divide classrooms, which is in some ways easier to do really than at the elementary level. But to implement this plan, and we are estimating that it would cost probably $20,000 to implement those class targets that are shown there for elementary. And as you'll see in a moment, that's the option that I listed on the budget proposals. We had 2 other options that we looked at. They were less expensive, but this was the one the board seemed to be most interested in. So that's all I have on class size targets, unless there's any questions.
Great.
No, just thank you.
All right. Review draft budget recommendations. Dr. Chestnut.
Okay, that leads right into the next one. So just to refresh your memory, this was the draft budget proposal that we looked at last night, and it kind of just summarized our discussions up till now. We have a total of $1,250,000 in additional revenue and or savings that we're projecting for next school year. Mr. Roush spent a lot of time scrutinizing these numbers, and we're pretty confident in those numbers. On the right-hand side, then, are the things that we've been talking about as far as new expenditures. And just to remind you how what the colors mean, numbers 9 through 14 are red because those were items from the Budget Committee. We've tweaked them a little bit in some cases, but probably still recognizable. So anyway, this kind of summarized our discussion up till the beginning of last night, and then the next 3 slides kind of discuss our 3 options that seem to emerge from our discussion last night. So I was going to call this one option 0, as in it has 0 chance, but I decided I wouldn't do that. So we just have 3 options, 1, 2, and 3, with no 0 option. So option 1, and I tried to get these fade-in things to work better, but I had trouble. So left-hand side doesn't change, okay? That's additional revenue, $1,250,000. On the right-hand side, I don't know, maybe this worked. I don't know. I had trouble with my computer. The red now means these are items that hopefully by the end of the night will be approved. There are some things we need to get approved soon, and the best example was the benchmark assessment increase of $13,000 the board approved about a month ago. And in fact, that's the reason the room is set up like this, is because we have training for the new assessment system. I think it started today and continues tomorrow. So that's very exciting. We're moving on that. On the HR agenda tonight are the 2 middle school custodians, HR benefit specialists, and the halftime grounds person. We'd like to get those advertised. So this little commercial to encourage you to approve that. And if you do, then all that red stuff would be approved at this point, but relatively small numbers compared to the big picture, okay? Class size targets, last night we talked about using the higher number. Like I just mentioned, option 3, that's 20,400. Sick leave bank, that's another item we've been talking about in recent weeks. This would buy 100 days or allow staff members to utilize 100 days of sick leave bank, assuming 100 days were donated by other employees. But there is a cost to that, and it would be a maximum of $28,000. There's still a lot of work that would need to be done there. Mr. Beckett would probably end up chairing a committee that would come up with a process and a procedure, and it probably wouldn't be ready to go, on day one of school, but it wouldn't really need to be because theoretically somebody has to run out of sick leave before they would need the sick leave bank, right? So we have some time to work on that, but that would get us launched, and that would be the price tag. Okay, item number 9 shows a 3% increase in pay for all staff members. So that's the change, really, the big change from the slide from last night. So that's a 3% increase, would cost us $817,500. That does not include the 1% salary increase that the legislature has provided to teachers. So teachers would receive a 4%, all other employees would receive a 3% if this was approved. Item number 10, interactive whiteboards. Put a little asterisk there to remind us that this is something we can still do, but we should have taken it out because we are focused on M&O expenditures and not one-time expenditures. We're focused on ongoing expenses. So everything else on the right-hand side is an ongoing expense that we need to support in the future. Interactive whiteboard is a one-time purchase. We're talking about a $12,000 amount. That's something we can easily do. It doesn't even need further board approval because it's not over $100,000, and I know there's interest in doing a little pilot project with that. That would be a good thing for our new technology integration specialist to kind of head that up. And so anyway, I just put that as a 0. We can still do that. Communication specialist on this list is earmarked as 0. And then the 12, 13, and 14 are unchanged. That leaves us a reserve amount, undesignated amount that could go into reserve funds of $169,000. So this is the most conservative approach. And Mr. Roush would like us to put aside at least $125,000. So he would like this even better, probably, if you asked him. But that's option number 1. Any questions on that one?
No.
Okay, ready for option number 2. This one's a little more aggressive. The left-hand side doesn't change. Nothing changes over there on the revenue side. On the right-hand side, let's see. I have too many of these going in my head here. 6 changes for the activity bus
Yes.
to the lower amount.
Two days a week,
That's the
right?
2-day-a-week amount, yes. Been messing with this stuff too much. I'm getting
We'll fill in the
confused.
blanks
Yes.
for you. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so if you're following, that's all that really matters. Class size targets still are at 20,000. Sick leave bank stays the same. Number 9, employee pay stays the same. Communicational specialist stays at 0. Okay. And the reserve goes down.
Yes.
And there it is, 98,812.
So the reserve goes down because you've put in the activity bus.
Correct.
Right? That's the difference?
And
Okay.
adjusted other
Correct.
principles.
Yep, correct.
No, everything else is the same.
Everything
The only
else
thing
is the
different
same. Yes.
is
Between
changes.
option 1 and option 2.
Correct.
And just because we put on number 7 and number 8, that doesn't necessarily mean that we will end up spending that, correct? I mean, that's our
That's
best
correct. For the
estimate, but
sick
that
leave,
doesn't mean
for
that
the
we're-
sick leave bank, that's just a,
We
I
may
would
not
assume
end
is
up
just a
spending
complete
that.
approximation at this point.
Yeah.
That would be our max.
Right.
In the case of class size targets, it could go more than that. I mean, there's probably an equal chance it's going to go more than that, as well as be less. It's just an estimate. And then option 3, that is where we fund everything with the communication specialist at halftime instead of the full-time 80,000, which we have been looking at on previous drafts, on the slide yesterday, for example. But because communication specialist is added on and not zeroed out, then the reserve goes to its lowest amount at $58,812. So that's the most aggressive proposal of the 3. And be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I have a question, because I was thinking of this last night after our study session. Now, on the security buses, number 6, we have the 70,000, and I know that 31,000 of that is actually for an actual salary position. Security. And then the balance of 33,000 would be just for the bus transportation costs. Because we're not sure if we're going to continue this is something we're going to try for a year to see, is it going to be utilized? Is it going to be worth the expense? Is this something that we could take out of one of our reserve funds as a one-time expense just to go through this year, and then to evaluate it, to then let the budget committee look at this, review this, see if it's something that they feel is necessary and something that is useful for our district? And then that would leave up it would leave out like $33,000 then, if we took it out of reserves for that one time.
It's a good question.
For Mr.
Mr. Roush, you want to
Roush.
weigh in on that question?
Just thinking.
Before he answers, is my mic on? Can
Yeah,
you hear
you
me?
have to get really, really close to
I
it.
have to
Yeah.
eat it?
Yeah, eat it.
Okay. Mr. Roush, just real quick. So the thing is if we're going to budget it, we want to budget it like it's going to be successful and that it's going to be an ongoing expense. I mean, I don't think we want it to just be a one-time. If we approve it, we want it to be successful. So I would think we would want to think long-term that this will be successful and that will be an ongoing expense. That's just a thought process. So with that, Mr. Roush.
We could take it out of one of our reserves that are built up one time. I think we're getting to the point where our reserves, we're using the revenue, and so they won't be building up anymore. So there's no revenue coming in to use those ongoing.
If
It'd just
fro-
be one, but there is quite, there's reserves to do at one-time costs. It's just, it would then start declining the reserves if you're to continue.
From
on.
your perspective, Mr. Roush, is it 6 of one, half dozen of the other? Or does it make a difference on whether we're going to continue it as an ongoing cost or it's the one-time fund?
Well, I would just defer that to those that would evaluate the program. I'm not, I don't.
But I'm saying in terms of how we pay for it for the
How we
first
budget
year.
it.
How we budget it?
Yeah.
It would just be coming out of a reserve, and the reserve would be going down. So it'd be like your own bank account. It's not sustainable with revenues, it's sustainable with savings. So eventually, either next year you decide with the sustainable revenue to use that, or you continue to take it out of your savings. I guess that's an example. Be like your home savings. So maybe all your revenue is not going to sustain it, but your savings balance would, and then eventually, unless you change something, got some more revenue, the savings would then,
So Mr.
For,
Roush,
for instance, after 10 years, it'd be $700,000 out of reserves,
I
right?
think what Mr. Judd is asking is which one would you prefer
Right,
us
is there
to
a
budget
preference?
for?
Budgeting-wise,
One time or
right.
ongoing? How would you prefer us to budget for
Correct.
those buses and security? As one-time expense or ongoing expense? Is that
Yes.
Well, from my perspective, if it's an ongoing cost, it makes sense to me to have sustainable revenues. So
Mr.
the revenue needs to sustain the expense.
And
So
are you okay with, and draft budget option 2, that the reserve drops significantly under 100,000? Is that a doable reserve?
Well, that's what we're adding to the reserves. That's
Yeah,
not
that's
the
what we're
reserve
adding
from
to the
reserves.
reserve,
Right, right.
yeah.
Well,
right.
actually, that, as Dr. Chess and I discussed today, we would be budgeting for a little bit higher revenue growth with enrollment to get it to 58,000 to get everything to balance. So,
With option 2, are we running a risk of jeopardizing the sustained pay increases that are in option 2?
Well,
Option
I
two is
think.
not on the screen.
I think.
But I'm saying, well,
I think,
he's seen that
again, a
information.
budget is a snapshot and an estimate, and sometimes, you know, the projections come in higher, the projections come in lower. So we're slightly conservative with the enrollment growth. So if the enrollment growth comes in a little bit higher, then this can easily be sustained. A lot of building going on. The only issue is that then you can't spend that enrollment growth because you're already spending
spent
it.
it.
So, but it's a you know, it's very doable. And then what we do is come back and see how it all lines up. For instance, you know, with how the state redid the enrollment, current year enrollment, you know, a lot of school districts are declining. So we're right now in a very good position. There's, you know, I'd say 10% of the school districts in the state, I haven't counted that, but I mean, for instance, are growing. There are a great deal that are contemplating how to cut stuff right now. So we're in a pretty good position. And again, so every year is, you know, again, you look at the economics of the community and your revenue sources and stuff, and say, yeah, we can easily continue this, we can add, or maybe we have to readjust our expenses. So this wouldn't be a huge leap to say, oh, it's going to, I anticipate our budget will be about $41 million in M&O. So, you know, if $60,000 didn't come in out of a $41 million budget, we're not going to go, you know, bankrupt. But it is just something that, you know, we just want to keep an eye on, obviously.
So, Mr. Roush,
I
you're
hope
referring to...
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, you're referring to option 3, what's on the board now?
Right, that's what's
Okay.
up, and so.
And you think that this is a doable, workable option for us here?
Yes, we'll just have to, again, as I said, we'll look at where we are next year and.
If our enrollment grows.
And, right, if we see that, you know, it didn't quite measure up, we may want to then have a little bit different of an expenditure plan. But I think we do that every year, you know,
Correct.
so, right.
I know in the past, Mr. Roush, I've heard you express that for the our reserve budget, you would like for it, or just the reserves, about 3%. Are we at about that 3%?
That's a good question. In my next agenda item, or not agenda item, but information item, I have 2 of the financial reports. One is in May, and we're projecting about $1.4 million. Now, if that carries over to about a $40 to $41 million budget, that'll be a little bit more than 3% for next year. So
We're in the safe zone.
So we're in the
Yeah.
for like. Thank you.
yeah, we're in a lot better position than a lot of school districts. So I'm again, you know, there's always a balance of, you know, we want to accomplish our mission. We want to spend our funds to accomplish our mission, but we want to make sure that we have, you know, a stable finance position just in case things don't quite go well. So, and it's hard to project, right? It's like,
But you do a pretty good job at that. Thank you so much.
well, you're welcome.
I have a question for Dr. Chestnut. Do you mind?
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw another idea out there. Just bear with me.
Sure.
I'm not saying this is what I want, I'm just throwing it out there. On option 1, Dr. Chestnut, I don't know if you can go back to option 1. On option 1, because I know Mrs. Coutre really wants her communication specialist.
I think our district
Could
really
we-
needs a communications
Could
specialist.
we take that 40,000 out of the unreserved funds? That would still give us 120, about 120,000 in reserve, and give us a half-time communication specialist on option one.
But
But
then-
that would not, but we'd have to give up the activity buses and security to do that. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, and that's a good suggestion. I know that, you know,
Just-
the high school has been asking for another additional security ever since I've been on the board.
Well, you never have enough security.
You never have enough security. And with the Ram Academy, and it's our enrollment at the high school has gone bonkers. It really has. That's probably one of our highest growth schools at this point. I really think that they do need that. But I still feel really strongly that our district needs a communication specialist. Even if it's part-time to start out with, I really think we have to get that information out there. You know, I look at our website now and it looks really good, thank you. But we're making improvements, but it needs to be monitored. It needs to be monitored, updated. We have to have ease of information for parents, potential parents, people that are moving into the district. If we want to continue our enrollment growth, we have to attract the students and the parents to want to come to our school. And if we want to stop the buses from going 347. So I really believe strongly in that. But I also really think that, you know, to try to do 2 days for the secondaries, to give the students that option of possibly having the tutoring and the after-school clubs, I think it totally enriches the whole student. It's not just coming to class, doing your work. There's extra things involved in your education experience. So you know, Mr. Roush, you've made me feel a little bit more confident. I was a little hesitant about option 3, but hearing your confidence in it, that it can be a doable thing, I'm leaning more towards option 3. You've been doing this long enough. I certainly trust your judgment. You haven't steered us wrong yet. So,
I mean, I appreciate that and I respect that opinion. I have a different opinion. I like option 1 or 2. I don't. I think if we have happy teachers, happy parents, and happy students, that speaks volumes. And I would rather see that communication specialist put on hold and be able to put more in reserve funds and be able to either do activity buses or not activity buses. So that would be I mean, I prefer option 2. You know, it's kind of a.
I'm leaning much more towards option 2. However, with Mr. Roush feeling fairly confident about option 3, it's one of those things to where do we want to tread water being at that place?
On the line.
And I don't know
yeah.
if that's where we want to be. It's a nice thing to be able to have those reserves, and being one of the few districts in the state that has this ability to be able to maintain that reserve and not worry about cuts. I like the fact that we're
Yeah.
there. I like option 2. I love President Coutret's idea about bringing the activity buses back. And I think that's a winner, and I like the fact that we got to the compromise of the 2 days a week as a pilot program. I
Yeah.
thought that was a good compromise, and I think that we could definitely move forward with that. Concerning the PR position, I'm not sold on it yet, and it's not something that I think I would support at this point. However, I do obviously see the wisdom in the fact that when we are competing against charters and we are competing against other districts, to be able to bring these kids in, it's something that we're going to need. I just don't see the need for it right now. I think after passing an override, I think the community has a lot of confidence in the district, and I think that money would be better spent maybe a year or 2 years down the road as opposed to this year.
Dr. Miller?
Can I keep it a secret?
Tiebreaker.
I'm going to keep it a secret.
No, we're good. I appreciate the work that you've put on it.
Most
Um,
definitely.
I think it gives us some good options, and I just appreciate it.
Well, I will say that, I'm very supportive of improving any type of student access, especially, after school, because we know that those are those times that we can help catch those kids and, get them involved and kind of a preventive intervention. So I will definitely say that I am in support of the activity buses, and also I'm in support of putting more money in our reserve funds. I think that that's, our responsibility to do that. So that's pretty much where I stand.
So, Dr. Chestnut, can we put this as an action item in our next agenda, just so, I know we can't finalize anything until July when we have the public hearing, unless you're done with all the paperwork beforehand, but I would like at least make this an action item so that the board can choose and vote on an option and give you guys solid direction on where to go.
Yes, I think we can make that happen. We might even be able to have a proposed budget at the next meeting, which would include.
Yeah, we're going to work to get the proposed budget, hopefully the next meeting, and kind of depends on the Auditor General with their forms and stuff. But yeah, that's our goal. And so with that, I think that falls right in line to be able to do, I guess.
So just to be clear, this isn't an action item, and obviously we're not going to vote on this, but I can hear what you're saying, and I know that, Patty would like option 3 with the communication specialist or some way to make that happen. I hear the other 3 people saying option 2, and I know Anna Marie has told me she's
Option 2.
liking option 1 or 2. So I think that's the direction that the proposed budget is headed, and then we can talk about it one more time at our next meeting.
Cool. One more thing, and I promise this is just one more thing. Item 10, since we're taking that out of DAA funds, a one-time expense, is there a possibility that there is a greater need than just the 20 or the few that were piloted? Because I know there are a lot of teachers who would use it. So
There would be. Originally, when I put it out there, I
Right.
just wanted it as a
Conservative.
pilot program,
Right.
just very limited, going out to the schools to be able to get the teachers that have technological expertise, their hands on it, and it's a lower cost option
Right.
to the smart boards. So it was originally just designed as a pilot program, so I'm good with where it is. However, if it is something that the teachers like, it's usable in the classroom, they like that product, then we can consider that, next year and moving on as a replacement for the current interactive technology.
And I think one of the reasons that we didn't want to do it full bolt route was because of all the new stuff that they're
Everything
already
else.
getting. They're
Right.
getting new math curriculum, they're
Exactly.
getting new assessment, hopefully next year it'll be new
And
ELA
it's just-
curriculum, so, there's a lot going on that.
No,
Well,
I'm
and the
just gonna
thing,
throw
and
it
the
out
thing of it
there.
is, with that product, it's a very specific product.
Yeah.
So if the teachers get it in their hands and they find that, this isn't classroom friendly or it's not a reliable product, then it's something that we scrap and we look for something else. But my goal for it, after talking with teachers and other community members, was the fact that it's a great thing to get kids up out of their seats. Studies show that the more you can do that in your classroom, the more the kids are retaining. And I want all of our teachers to have access to that technology.
I was just, like I say, since it was a one-time expense and it was taken out of our.
It could
I
grow
was just-
for next
I was just throwing
year.
it out to staff
Yeah.
if they felt that there was a need for it.
And the following year, it can be part of our override funds for our technology.
Correct.
Instructional technology, it could be part of that 500,000.
To be honest, when I had initially put it forward in the Budget Committee, it was really something more slotted for the technology. But I believe when we were going through that, there was a section that was placed there for technology.
Right.
Correct.
So I was like, well, if that's something that they're going to discuss at this meeting, then I'm going to put it in there. But either way, I'm glad that it's going to go forward, and I want to make sure that all the teachers have access to that technology.
Well, and I appreciate you taking them out of DAA funds so that it gave us that extra money to put towards other options. So I appreciate you brainstorming on that. I know we pushed hard.
It's okay, that's what we're here for.
All right, Mr. Roush, while you're up there, are there
Yeah.
any more questions or discussion
No,
about the
that's good.
budget? We're good? Okay. So we'll move on to the financial reports for April.
I was just going, so now tonight, is it recommended to
We
those
don't- no,
ones in
it's not
red?
a- It's not
In action, so then,
next meeting.
okay, so will that cause any problems for you? 'Cause I know it's,
No, I think we're good. I think
Okay.
we're good.
Okay, are you good?
yes, I
I'm
just want
sorry,
to
I'm
double
sorry,
check on that.
I didn't mean
before
to,
we move. You're
didn't mean
good.
to move forward, I didn't see. Okay, so we'll, Mr. Roush,
Mhm,
review
right.
of the monthly
Proposed
financial reports
positions.
for April and
Maybe
May.
there's anything.
Yes, thank you. Again, we want to do April and May, because we wanted to have the most current fund balance information. That's why we hurried up and got May's done. And again, so I will briefly just, again, go through April and April's report didn't have the budget revision in it, so the numbers are a little bit different. And being a good accountant, you can't put a budget revision in a month that didn't have the budget revision. So that's why it's a little bit different. Revenues and expenditures are a little bit different. Again, we always like to highlight different things. And so, again, Maricopa places first in math and competition, and that's highlighted with that report. And if there are no other questions, I'll go on to May.
No questions?
And then May, again, appreciate the artwork there. School's out for summer. I believe there's an Arizonan that has a song about that. But with that, you can see our fund balance projection on page M1. And then our budget financial report F1 shows about $1.4 million. Currently, of course, that changes a little bit. So $1.4 million over a projected next year's budget. So if that carries through, of about $41 million, that's a little bit more than 3%. So any questions?
So I understand that we had some savings regarding switching out, putting in the new LED lights.
Right.
Do we know district-wide how much savings that we've occurred?
Well, at least $110,000. That will be annual savings. On the board agenda tonight is for a position that I think will, over a 3-year period of time, save the district 3 or 4 or more times that annually.
Wow.
Right.
And then, do you know, are we completely, everything switched out to LED, or is there, do you know, is there a certain percentage that we still have left to
Oh,
switch?
that's why we have the position. So it's every, we did the exterior parking lot lights. We're doing some of the exterior building lights. We've done the interior gyms. We have not all of them, but and we may have to put that under contract because that's kind of an overhead work that this particular position wouldn't, I think we would just contract that out. And then it's the classroom stuff in the halls and the lower level stuff that we can get to with LEDs. And that's what that position would be doing 3 days a week with our other person helping. And we think we can knock most of it out in about 3 years. And these lights are, the outdoor lights are warranted for 10 years, but the way we have them, because they're on motion sensors and they actually phase up and phase down, we think that the life expectancy of those bulbs are 15 or more years. So what we would do is put phased lighting in every classroom too. And so we think that we wouldn't be changing very many light bulbs because at all, and unless there's a warranty issue. So,
Good.
so
That's very encouraging news.
And then again, just the next thing is then then you look at your controls. And then the very last thing, the question, you look at solar. So you try and get everything down before you go to solar. And so, but those are our plans. And I'll tell you that if we approve this position, we're one of the few districts that is doing it this way. And instead of paying others, we're putting the money in our pocket.
Yeah.
So, and I have a lot of vendors that aren't very happy with me right now because they'd love to make more money off us. But anyway.
Very good. Thank you. Very encouraging news.
Any other questions for Mr. Roush?
Not for me.
Thank you, Mr. Roush.
You're welcome.
All right, consent agenda, and we have removed item 6K. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, and item 6K, I asked this to be taken off the consent agenda just because I wanted Mr. Beckett to kind of give maybe the audience more information regarding this. Mr. Beckett?
Thank you, President Goodray, members of the board, Dr. Chestnut. Tonight, we are asking the board to consider a service agreement with Smart Schools Plus. There are a number of things that have transpired, especially in the last few years, that have placed some additional responsibility upon us for reporting requirements for our substitute pool. We have about 100 employees that are different levels of activity, but are on our roles as substitutes. What we're hoping to do with this particular contract vendor, there's some things that work in our benefit and that we really are excited about. First, we have a couple of different compliance issues that probably would be taken away, would be taken away from us, according to them, if we adopt that. First is our ACA compliance. They indemnify the district against the reporting requirements on that. And second, Proposition 206, which just was voted into, will be going into effect as July 1st. Starts a sick leave bank, or excuse me, not a sick leave bank, I've got that in my mind. Sick leave requirements for employees once they accrue a certain number of hours, even over extended weeks. And so there is some additional liability the district would pick up, reporting requirements, things that we would have to be required to do. They would also take care of all of that reporting. We would also these employees would no longer be district employees, so they would actually be falling under a company that no longer needs to report to Arizona State Retirement Services. So any matching funds that we are required to give to Arizona State Retirement, which for those of us that are employed in the district here is 11%, is what the district is matching our salaries each year. That money is saved then by the district from having to pay that additional funds. We would also additionally transfer any liabilities with workman's compensation, or or with our unemployment. Those things would all transfer to that new company. We do remain in control too, which is exciting. We have an opportunity to make our own selections, so we would continue to use our same system we have presently. Judy Valdez, who does our substitute coordination at this point in time, much of her duties would remain the same, except once she finishes her reconciliations of the payroll portion of it, she just sends that right off to Smart Schools Plus, and they do the actual work. One of the things that is exciting, I think, we have not really had the capability to do as much training with our substitute staff. It's a very challenging role. We're fortunate many times to have substitutes who have teaching backgrounds, but there are also others that are coming from very, very diverse and eclectic backgrounds. Smart Schools Plus actually offers a professional development opportunity through Arizona State University, and so there will be some actually good training that will be available to those substitutes to help them with their classroom work. We retain the ability to keep these people on, but then also expand their time with us. In the past, we've tried to limit our substitutes to 3 days a week in some instances in order to save us from having to cross that threshold where we have to provide benefits. Once again, since the company assumes all of that liability for insurance benefits now, they will provide insurance, they'll provide, in fact, they offer a very rich plan. They offer insurance, all the supplementals that the district offers in terms of 401ks and 403bs. Those things are all offered through the company. So it really is a much better plan overall for the substitutes than even we're able to offer. I guess finally, we're working with Smart Schools. We've had a good relationship with them over the last few years. We've had probably about 10 employees, from our administrators to some of our certified staff members, some classified staff members actually as well, that have worked under Smart Schools. We've been pleased with the contracts we've had. They've been very reputable company. We're thrilled to be able to work with them. But that's the company that will be representing us through this. We see this as a positive step in supporting our staff, as well as helping to keep the district out of risk liability.
So, Mr. Beckett, our current substitutes that we have, what will they need to do? Do they need to then apply to Smart Schools, or do we still vet all those individuals?
Correct. Actually, personally, vet each substitute that comes into the district, and we would retain that control.
So, are you done?
Yeah.
So on our budgets, 1, 2, and 3 options, the substitute contract amount, which is $48,000, is that this contract?
It is.
Okay, so if we approve that tonight, we need to change that to red. Okay, I just want,
There's-
it's on all 3 budgets.
Yes.
but
And
I
there's,
want-
is that an estimated number?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, we're,
Based on how much we're paying for subs without this, and based on how much we'd be paying for subs with that
Correct, yeah, it's actually a
contract in place.
6.5%.
So the 48,000 essentially their service fee?
Yeah.
That's
And it's-
correct.
And it's still a cost savings for us because we're not having to, first of all, do the paperwork, so we don't have to hire other people to do the paperwork, but it's,
there is some intangibles that are involved in
Yeah.
the cost savings for us. And so this is going to be a little bit of a pilot year for us to see how this actually works out. But, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to have some really good results. Like I said, we're working with a great company. I really feel like very positive about this.
but it is a cost savings.
No, at this
It's-
point in time, we
no,
would be
it's-
paying additional cost over top of what our current substitutes are. Now, like I said, there are some things that we need to factor in, though. You know, what's our savings going to be on our Arizona State retirement
Right,
savings?
that's what I'm yeah.
Right, and again, those things are very difficult at this point in time to quantify. And so we're stepping out here in faith, thinking this is going to be a good thing down the road, but it probably won't be able to actually get those hard figures until after we do this for a year.
Till this time next year. And then will this give us a bigger pool to pull from substitutes?
Yes.
Because I
Yes.
know it's really hard to find substitutes right now, as it's been on the agenda many,
Yeah,
many times. Okay.
exactly, yeah, I mean-
That's the bigger plus.
It is. It's a terrific opportunity. And actually, what happens, all Smart Schools employees then that are under this
Okay.
contract are open. So we could be getting people who maybe aren't getting assignments in Gilbert or
Right.
whatever school district they happen to be working through. They could come to here and be able to work for the day.
Cool.
I just had one more question,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Beckett. I know this is kind of putting you on the spot because it may not be something that you knew right off the bat, but do you have a couple of, like, examples of transfer liability, at what point they would assume liability where we would be free of liability, like a particular instance, just to sweeten it for me to make sure that I can vote for this?
Mr. Judd, let me think on that.
Okay.
Can I reply back to you, and then I'll copy the rest of the board as well
Okay.
on an answer? I
I'm
may
leaning
ask-
towards it anyways, but I would just be
Sure.
interested, just in case that were to come up.
Sure. I'd rather have maybe the McClellans from Smart Schools Plus give me a reply. I think
Okay.
probably a little bit
I
more.
appreciate it.
Mr. Beck, wouldn't it be true, though, that, say we had, one of our subs went over the 3 days a week, and we found out that we would owe them, medical benefits?
Correct.
And we didn't give it to them, then we'd have some liability there possibly.
That's
And
correct.
that could happen to Smart Schools, but it'd be their problem.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a good example.
This allows us, our subs, to work
5 days,
More.
yeah, 5 days a week.
without
instead
being
of-
considered long-term subs.
Right. Yeah, I like it.
All right, any other questions or discussions? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Beckett, while you're up there, we have action item 7A, discussion and possible approval of the personnel schedule.
Thank you, President Coutray, members of the board, Dr. Chestnut. You have the personnel schedule in front of you tonight. Just wanted to highlight that we have our certified staff members list. I apologize, we were kind of remiss in getting that to you earlier on, but these are the people that are coming back that are currently employed with the district. You will see under the new position requests, those positions that we were talking about earlier on. We did our best to try to break out the budget places where they're going to be coming from. I believe number 12, the custodians, the two, I believe what I remember is the civic
Yes.
civic fund was where we're planning to
Okay.
yank those out of, so instead of the M&O budget. But everything else there, I think, is pretty clear.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, I'd be willing to take them.
How about number 11? The M&O, the 29.4, that's coming out of civic fund as well, is what we talked about at Budget Committee? That part of it?
My recollection on that one, and Mr. Roush can correct me, is that he's in thinking that that person is going to generate at least $29,400 in savings from replacing LED lights. So I think we put it in as a no
Is it no cost?
cost to M&O, and that's why it didn't go on the budget sheet. Now,
But-
It still comes out of M&O, but it's out of the savings that we get.
Okay. But we're still, as we discussed, going to be using the Civic Center fund to pay for that sort of thing, so that it's not coming out of
That sort of thing, yes, I think in the case of custodians.
Number
Uh-huh,
12.
Yes,
yes.
okay. Building maintenance,
The
that sort
two
of thing.
custodians are coming out of the civic fund, and then this position is funded directly by food service, their expenditures. And,
Yeah, food service, but you've got three different, that
three
person's
different
broken down
funding,
in three different
right.
areas.
Right, and energy savings, right. So,
I just want to make sure what we talked about was where it's coming from.
Are there any other questions?
I would, do you have a question? Okay, I was just going to move to make a motion to approve action item 7A.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last item of the night, adjournment. Do I have a motion?
A motion to adjourn?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Anderson. All in
'Cause you got the
favor?
last one. Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned 7:31.
Ooh, 1 hour. Woo.